David, why don't you go ahead and do your reading?
Okay, I could do that now. Um, Instead of the poem today, I'm going to quote from a very important part of the Seder that we're going to do tonight. And of course, I'm going to follow a tradition that Wendy and I always did, because we rarely had guests over for our Seder, although we did sometimes. But what we would do is we do a very short Seder together. Wendy would ask the four questions because she was 6 months younger than I am. And so as the youngest, she'd ask the four questions. But we had a lot of fun doing that. And
Yeah,
after the
fine.
Seder was
I'm
over,
on a Zoom meeting now. What was it, your broken arrow or what?
I didn't quite hear you.
Okay.
Marianne, what was your question? Okay, I'll just keep on going
All
then.
right, go ahead, David. Just continue so we can catch up with
Yeah,
everything.
okay. And after we did our short Seder, we would always watch the Ten Commandments. So tonight I'm going to do exactly that to continue the tradition that I had with Wendy. Anyway,
Okay, that would be great. The two, and then I'll be in a couple of minutes. I mean, an hour. Okay. All right.
one
Okay.
of the things that
Thank
one of
you.
the things that we are going to read in the Seder tonight is a very important thing from 1 Chronicles. It says, and with an outstretched arm, this refers to the sword, as it is said, and a drawn sword in his hand, outstretched over Jerusalem. And apparently, this was in response to a cannon that King David had ordered in Jerusalem that apparently God did not approve of. And there is evidence, scientific evidence, that the drawn sword about the time of King David was in fact a comet that appeared in the sky over Jerusalem. And I did a little bit of studying on that in one of the books that I wrote years ago. And I just wanted to share that with you today. And a drawn sword in his hand, outstretched over Jerusalem. It seems like the comet of 11 something might have been 11 BC, might have been about the time that the reign of King David was taking place. And so the comet kind of fits there. Okay, thank you very much. And back
Thank
to
you,
you.
David. Thank you. Let me read our opening prayer, and then we can finish with our discussions about women's vows. I'll read our prayer in English this time. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Uh, what I wanted to do is sort of try to finish this particular section on the vows that women make. I think we started it a little bit, uh, but I'm not sure where we left off. I didn't make a little note of it last week. I had a lot on my mind. And I do want to get to some things afterwards. So, for the first hour, we'll discuss the Torah, and then this dovetails not only into Torah, what I want to bring up, but also Passover. Okay, we know that there's a lot, and the mentioning of celebrating the Passover is an essential part of the Jewish religion. And there is some symbolism in it, and we will discuss it. And just to give you a rough idea as to what some of the other what other rabbis have said about the Passover service. And if we're joined by Rabbi Miri and Rabbi Norman, they can add to that. Rabbi Norman is very busy this morning, and he will try to make it during the last half of our session. So why don't we start? And I'm going to defer to the women to read this because it's about women. It's only fair. And so, why don't we, if we are currently on Numbers 30, okay, verses, uh, so if Donna or Marianne, if you will read verses 3 through the end of 6. Well, and we may be backtracking a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay,
Donna, you're now muted.
I'll read it.
Before, Donna, when you were answering your phone or speaking with someone, it was drowning everything out because you had left everything on. So that's why it's backwards for you.
Oh,
Left it
okay.
on, and so now you're on. Okay,
Okay.
it's all
Well,
right. I
Let
can't.
me, it's hard, I don't know where it's at in my
Oh, okay.
Torah,
We
so go
are-
ahead.
Okay, so
It gets into the Haftarah and then I can't find the 3. So why don't you go ahead and read?
okay, we're not in the Haftarah.
No, I know, but I can't find it after that.
Okay, this would be Book of Numbers, chapter 30,
Yeah.
verse 3. And take your time. Marianne, why don't you read and while Donna tries to catch up with us?
Okay, Donna, I have this on page 1215 because I get very confused with this book too.
Okay, that doesn't jive with mine.
Okay.
They're different
so-
books. Everyone
Sorry,
has a
just trying to
different.
help you.
Thank you.
That's right.
If a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath imposing an obligation on himself, he shall not break his pledge. He must carry out all that has crossed his lips. If a woman makes a vow to the Lord and assumes an obligation while still in her father's household by reason of her youth, and her father learns of her vow or her self-imposed obligation and offers no objection, all her vows shall stand, and every self-imposed obligation shall stand. But if her father restrains her on the day he finds out, none of her vows or self-imposed obligations shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her since her father restrained her.
Okay. Now I remember we did read this portion. That's where we ended. But you notice that there's a difference between men and women. If as I said last time, there's only one verse that deals with with the men and their obligation. The rest are all different possibilities for a woman. Is it so? We discussed a little bit last time that it was a little uneven, to say the least. But at that time it was a male-dominated society. Rabbi Plout talks about this in the same sense that we have to think of it at that time. And in history, most societies were male-dominated. Okay. And however, there were a few that were more maternal or matrilineal societies, and they were mentioned in lots of stories at that time, mythology. The Amazons come to mind, and other groups. So I'm glad there was the story of the Amazons because otherwise we would never have had Wonder Woman.
Hey, you've got him right here, Marty.
But over time, and fortunately, things became equal. It was a hard deal. over time. But all I can say is it still has a little way to go, but I think that that we've made a good deal of progress over almost 5,000 years. I
I
have
think I am
covered
going to have a
5,000.
major problem with this. I am not a feminist
Okay.
type of person. I mean, I have taught and trained martial arts for years and years, and I've done all kinds of stuff. But I really believe that women have their place and purpose, men have their place and purpose. And half the problems in this world is nobody knows how to be a woman and nobody knows how to be a man. That there's a whole, you have to remember that after God created women, he didn't create anything else because we are his very best creations. So I have no problem with it. But I know a lot of women do. And that's up to them. But I am happy being a girl. Let's just put it like that.
Okay. And any other comments from? Yeah. Okay. Let
Oh,
me let Donna go
Mike.
first,
Oh, okay.
and then I'm going to do Michael and then Ken.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay.
It was hidden at the bottom. Anyway, so one of the things that comes to mind for me is my rabbi that was in California is to remember when this was written and how it was, how society was, because I'd rear my head, well, blah blah blah, and other women would also. And once I let go of that and really took it in what was going on there, I mean, this was a big step for women to even have this in that day and age.
Yes.
I'm also, I don't consider myself a feminist because for me, it brings up a lot of anger against men and some women, and we can't proceed ahead with that. I think women are very special creation, and so are men, and we need the opposites. If we didn't have that in life, it would just be like an angel. There's not much else going on. So conflict can be good, and that it's like a friend of mine said, it's like honing. You're honing a diamond. And so unless we have that friction, some of that friction, we can't grow, but we have to be open. So anyway.
Good point. Good point. Michael.
As a side note, this is rather interesting, but I'm going to bring it to a different place. A lot of the problems that Israel faces in the Middle East is because Israel is in the middle of all of these Arab nations, and Israel is, as we know, is so different when it comes to men and women. Women in Israel are not second-class citizens, like you would say. They do everything a man does. They drive. They do everything, including they're in the army. And I see this as a threat to all the Arab nations that do not allow women anything, almost nothing. They cover them up, and I see this as a threat. And this could be part of the problem. I don't know, but it seems to me that it's possible that they want to get rid of because of that the way they think. I'm not sure exactly if I know what they think, but they may see this as a huge threat, and also as a something against their God that it shouldn't be. In other words, I think they're taking it to a level that is very high in their thinking. That's just an observation.
Thank you. Thank you. Kent, you're on. Kent, you're muted.
There you go. Okay.
You got it.
All right. So first, apologize for a few minutes late, and I may have to go early. So I just wanted to get that out
Okay.
there. And more importantly is that my greatest blessing has been my daughter. She's my one and only, and not just as a parent, but she has, having her in my life very deeply, has opened my eyes to issues involving uh, uh, equity relative to gender and what women have gone through and continue in many areas today, whether it's employment, in other areas, in education and the like, uh, are not treated as well or as understandably as men are. And I see that, and I say that because it's changed me in knowing that and my sensitivity. So I'm grateful for having my daughter at many levels, but that's one of them. I want to go back to like an interpretation of this from line 2 through that section of line 4 or sentence 4. And that is
Okay,
that in the first, in line 2, it speaks about a man, okay? Makes a vow, man's got to uphold his vow. Okay,
right, verse
but,
3, verse
right,
3.
verse 3. But then you go to the next one, right, which is about a woman.
That's right.
And, but there's those words in there, line 5. Wait, hold on 1 second, 1 second. No, in line 4, but she's
Okay,
still in her father's.
do you mean verse 4 or line
Verse
4?
4, verse 4.
Verse 4,
I'm going, when
okay,
I read the numbers of verses, the lines, I'll
okay,
just stick with what I know here.
okay,
So in verse 4, but while in her father's household by reason of her youth. Okay. So today, as in this, as far as I know, in this country, since its inception, there's some um, parental control, or by way of reaching an age of majority, so-called age of majority, to vote, to drink, to this, for medical considerations. Can you have this operation or that? Well, if you're under 18, the parents decide, and so forth. So that seems smart to me, right? That it would be in there. Now, so what I'm asking, I guess, or positing, is that where it had to be called out for a woman to not be the age of majority, to have the parents say, no, you're not doing that. You're not promising that. But as far as men were concerned, they were also covered by the age of majority, because it doesn't mention in verse 3 anything about youth. Zero.
correct.
So perhaps it's implied that, in fact, they didn't have to keep a vow if they were in their father's household and not of age, because everybody understood it at the time. They knew that's the way it was. But for women, it was called out. Just saying.
Yeah, no, it is an omission, if you will, in if we want to think of it that way. But if you think of Victorian England and the way they raised boys and girls, it was identical for many years until puberty. Boys and girls both wore dresses.
Well, I didn't
Go
know that,
figure.
but
Go
yeah.
figure. That's an extension. So they were treated in a similar fashion. That was during the Victorian age. I don't know about before then, but you see pictures of young men, not young men, but boys. You see them in dresses. So if you look at photographs of the Roosevelt family, okay, when it goes back in history, the little kids were all wearing dresses. And I just say that, because this is really adding to what Kent was saying, that youth
Exactly.
was a different consideration. And it starts here.
Right.
I'm not saying that they wore the same clothing. We don't know. At that time, but all I can say is that the separation of the sexes was very, very rigid. Michael addresses it in the Arab world as opposed to not just to Israel, but what more modern European and North American cultures look at, with regard to um, honoring both sexes and who they are. Yes, Marianne.
Yeah, Marty, you have received some experience with Native people. They have an interesting saying. Women wear the skirts, men wear the pants. Women take care of the babies and the food, and you guys can do the rest of it. And that works just fine for me. That
That's okay. That's
and
right.
in that culture, and I think we're talking time differences in culture here. What kept the society going? What worked best for the people involved?
Right.
That's times change, but do the basic relationships, between men and women change? What many years ago when I was a kid, I wanted to go on a date with this guy, and a guy walked in the house, and my father took one look at him and said, "Get out of here." I was ready to die. Many years later, I was dating a different guy, and my Tio, like my uncle, took one look at him and said, "Get out of here." And he said, "You go in the backyard with your Tio." Yeah, and I thought he was kidding. He's like, "Where do you find these losers, Mija?" I said, "I don't know, Tio. They just kind of find me. They just kind of show up in my life." But yes, I think that this is of paramount importance
Yeah.
for men to be men and to understand what it means to be a man and a family man and a husband and a father, that we miss so much of this today, that people just get crazy with what they do. But anyway, I like the way I live, and I enjoy being a girl, and you guys can be the men.
Okay. Okay. Wait a minute. David and then Michael.
I wanted to bring up
She
a
threw down the
I-
gauntlet.
okay, I wanted to bring up a rather troubling connection between what we just read and something that is done during the beginning of every service. And this is something possibly, in my mind, the most controversial prayer in the entire prayer book. And it says at the beginning for men to say, to thank God that I was not born a woman. And in our congregation, a lot of the men, when they got to that prayer, just didn't say it. And this went on to something else, to the next one. But I think that's one of the most controversial prayers in the entire Siddur.
I
I
would
agree.
have to find out, and David, maybe you can look this up, to see when that phrase entered into things. So far, we haven't seen that here in Torah. So I don't know if it was brought in at some time, in the recent common era, in the common era, if it was early in the common era or if it mid common era, I just don't know. But a rabbi would be able to answer that question. Yes, Marianne, if you know the answer.
I've heard that expression before, and I take that as a sign of honor, that women do so much, and we have babies and yada yada yada, and then we've got menopause, that it's a sign of respect for the trials and tribulations and the hard work that women go through. So I don't necessarily find that offensive.
So maybe there should also be a statement for women to say that.
There is.
Yes, no, I don't know
There
I
that.
was born a woman.
there is the following part after that.
What
The one
happened
that
to
women
me?
are supposed to say is that they thank God for having made me according to thy will. And that's the prayer that follows the one that I don't feel comfortable saying.
Okay. Yes, Michael.
Thank you. Yes, I have what Marianne brings up is really important. I mean, it's extremely important because if you look at today's society, what this has brought on is chaos. With women, pardon the expression, stepping out of bounds with all kinds of things, and not to get crazy here, but you find like the men and women sports, which is not good. I mean, from my point of view, I don't see that's a healthy thing. So lowering the standards for women for what men are doing a very difficult job in regards to the fire department. The fire department has certain standards, and it's carrying a certain amount of weight in their trials, and so what women's liberation has done, lowered the standards so a woman can be a fire person, a firefighter, carrying people down a ladder, and they don't have the physical strength to do it. And this rips away at the I don't really like this saying, but it rips at the fabric of society, and so it's just not a good thing. So Marianne makes a really, really very important point.
Well, I think what you said, there are two factors, and this is brought out by other rabbinic sources, okay, on the subject, and that if you go by the orthodoxy, what you said is even in many instances to this day, just as you have said. However, you do not see that in the Reform or conservative or many of the other movements, the secular movements and like that. You would not hear that. So from the Orthodox standpoint, yes, and I understand your Orthodox background. So I'm taking a neutral ground saying that there will be other opinions, and but there's a lot of substance that to recognize that there are differing opinions even in today's world. It may take another 1,000 years for everything to balance out. I don't know, but it's been a long struggle. I have two girls, and so as a result, I come to their defense all the time but I did warn them about what goes on, in society. Yes, Donna. Donna, you're muted.
Okay, that seems to be the theme today. What Michael was saying, my take on it is that I came from a farming community 20 some years up in Northern California on the coast. And I'll tell you what, some of those women, like in farming, bucking hay, you know how heavy
They
those
can
things
do
are.
it. Yeah,
But they're built differently. Okay.
sure.
I don't have that, plus I don't like bucking hay, but yeah, but I have my strong points too. And so I think we can't, and we do this a lot in all different areas. We want to put everybody in the same box, and that's not true. So, and also I know some women firefighters there in Humboldt.
Sure.
Oh my God, they don't lower the standards for these gals to pass.
That's right.
They can't because of the kind of job that they have.
Exactly.
So I think it's figuring out what I can and can't do, and what I can do, be the best at it. So,
Right.
okay.
So, yeah, okay. Marianne, I'm going to let you have the last word on this, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, I totally appreciate what Dawn is saying. Excuse me. One of the biggest regrets in my life was back in the day in the 60s, when you hyphenated your name, you had to have an education because, after all, you just don't want to be like a mother and a wife, how dowdy. That as I look, and you're burning your bra, and you're just doing all these stupid things. I owned a karate school. I worked in prisons. I bossed around men twice my size. I have no doubt about, like Donna just said, I have no doubt about what I'm capable of doing. That I think it makes me more of a woman because I can balance these other quote unquote roles with what I do on a daily basis. I cook or I bake just about every day. And I thank God for that. I mean, I don't think any of you guys go out there making bread or something every day, but it's a blessing to just be balanced in who you are and what you can do. I mean, like Donna just said, that is heavy work. But men are broad-shouldered. They have stronger arms. They have stronger hands. Women, we have broader hips. We have the babies. That you do what's necessary to maintain your culture and your society. But guys, I really do regret the women's lib thing. Sorry about that. Had I known then, what it destroyed the economy, it destroyed the concept of family, it destroyed the country. That we can move forward from a different perspective.
Okay. Well, now we have different opinions, and that's fine. And thank you for being restrained and, didn't get into any major arguments.
Oh,
But
no.
anyway, what I want to do is look at, as we read the rest of the passages here, and we can do this very simply. In each one of the passages, the young woman now reaches maturity, and now is no longer, we've read about what happens in her father's home, but now look at it, what happens to the woman as she goes through life and the different types of conditions that she would wind up in, and how this the argument for it's not male dominance, it's inheritance through the male side of things. Okay. And if you look at it that way, you can see, oh, there are very few outs for the woman. Okay. And so I think if you look at it from the standpoint of inheritance, it becomes a problem. And that's why the Philiad, I think I got that right, the Philiad's daughters, he dies and they go to Moses, but they say that in order they want to inherit so that the land can stay with in the family, in the tribe. Okay. And so God grants that. They were thinking more than just for themselves. So now look at all the other conditions that are being placed on a woman as she goes through life. So why don't we read from verse 7 all the way through 17. So if somebody gets out of breath, I forgot who read, yeah, Donna, it's up to you. Sure. Be sure Donna, you have to check your.
Oh my God.
Now we
Okay,
can hear
anyway.
you.
Okay. If she should marry while her vow or her commitment to which she bound herself is still in force and her husband learns of it and offers no objection on the day he finds out, her vows shall stand and her self-imposed obligations shall stand. But if her husband restrains her on the day that he learns of it, he thereby annuls her vow which was in force or the commitment to which she bound herself, and the Lord will forgive her. The vow of a widow or of a divorced woman, however, whatever she has imposed on herself shall be binding upon her. So, too, if while in her husband's household she makes a vow or imposes an obligation on herself by oath, and her husband learns of it, yet offers no objection, thus failing to restrain her, all her vows shall stand and all her self-imposed obligations shall stand. But if her husband does annul them on the day he finds out, then nothing that has crossed her lips shall stand, whether her vows or self-imposed obligations. Her husband has annulled them, and the Lord will forgive her. Every vow and every sworn obligation of self-denial may be upheld by her husband or annulled by her husband.
Husband.
Okay, I'm going to stop. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Marianne, back to you.
15.
Verse 15, all the way through the end of 17.
Unmute.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
So if her husband offers no objection from that day to the next, he has upheld all the vows or obligations she has assumed. He has upheld them by offering no objection on the day he found out. But if he annuls them after the day he finds out, he shall bear her guilt. Those are the laws that the Lord enjoined upon Moses as between man and his wife and between father and his daughter while her father's household by reason of her youth. I do have a question on this.
Sure.
What do they mean about vows? I promise
It's
to make
all to God. A woman makes a vow to God. That we had addressed last week. And it says basic, where is it here? If a man makes a vow to the Lord, okay, and it says and then in verse 4, if a woman makes a vow to the Lord, okay, she can make a vow to anyone else, and that's different.
Okay.
If it's,
Okay.
if you do this, I will do that, but to God, okay?
Okay. Thank you. That
You're
clears it
welcome.
up.
So when you put that into perspective, the man, once he is doing all of these things, he's going to then have to follow, if he absolves her of it, in certain circumstances, it's okay because he's given 24 hours. But if it goes beyond that and he doesn't do anything, he now absorbs the guilt of the woman. The woman is no longer guilty.
When you use the word, when you use the word promise, when you make a promise, it's one thing, but the word vow seems to be a little higher.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The word vow, because you make vows at your wedding, you make a vow to God. It's higher than a promise.
I
The way
agree.
I see it.
Yeah, you're right. Very good. So so this is what is we can discuss that you look at this and some people have interpreted it as that as the woman is the property of the man, and the man is responsible for her actions and everything. And if he doesn't take care of it in a certain amount of time, he then has the responsibility to either carry it out or, if not, bear the guilt. So it puts pressure on the guy to, to be careful with things. So, and also just to be careful of what you say. Yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Donna, and then Marianne.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It's such a chunk of all this. It was, it's kind of confusing, but in rereading, it does, if her father restrains her,
Correct.
okay, in the beginning, and she is self-imposed obligation, offers no objection. But if her father restrains her on the day he finds out, none of her vows or self-imposed obligations shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her, since her father restrained her.
Yes.
That's big for, you know,
So,
that-
so Dad must be better hang around and think about it before he runs into the field.
yeah, it checks out the control, it kind of checks
Yeah.
that it removes that from the conversation and how they treat women. So, yeah.
Another way of looking at this is the responsibility of the different roles. Okay, it's not so much keeping the lady in if you will, some people have said in a state of bondage, and I would quote, yeah, you reached out too far. It's quotes, but some people have looked at it that way. Some people say, I am the man of the house. I rule 100% of the time, and that's it. Okay, and you do what I say. But there are other ways of looking at it, and that is where that the man has to have a sense of responsibility that comes along with marriage. And by the way, if the widow, it doesn't say much about the woman's uncles or anything, other men in the family could, maybe they could do it if they were so moved, to say, you don't have to do this. I will absorb you of that vow to God, and we'll go from there. Yes, Marianne.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't understand without a concrete example of what a vow would be. But anyway, if the husband or the father says no, how can he stop her from preventing what's in her heart? If she has made a vow to God, that is her vow to God. He may
Another way of looking at it.
stop
Sure.
her from acting on it in different ways, but he can't stop her from what she feels in her heart.
So maybe this means that it shouldn't be harsh, that the man has complete control. Maybe he has to discuss it with the woman.
Yeah, I don't think that he just stands there and beats her with a stick and goes, absolutely not.
I wish, I know Lynn was here last week, but she would have appreciated this comment. If you those of if you look at the Kabbalists and the way they viewed it, you could look at judgment being very severe. And on this, there's what they have in the Kabbalists. They call it a Sephirotic chart. Okay. For those of you with a science background, it's like a benzene ring. Okay. But basically, on that particular line, there's a line that connects judgment and love. Okay? And it's interesting because that's going to come up in a little bit later. There are a number of times in Talmud where the opposites have to be balanced. It's not just the orthodoxy, it's in Talmud that you have to find a, if you will, we haven't gotten there yet, a just justice. Okay? It's going to shift over time, back and forth, but you have to take into the balance between love and justice. So compassion, you come up with a compassionate judgment. It's very difficult, but the ancients really were thinking about these things and how this occurs, and obviously this is part of the discussion. And so I just wanted to point that out, that balance here between, it's not just balance between justice and love, it's also balance between among the sexes. Because there are times when a woman, let me finish, Michael, and then I'll turn it over to you. There are times when, if you think about it, even if it were a male-oriented society, there are times when the woman must step up and take over. Okay? So you have to understand that things have to change. This is the start. This is part of the start of understanding the role of the woman. And it's not being subservient. It's, who's going to take care of the children? Who's going to do it's not, it's what happens if the husband isn't there? And we've already read about the responsibility of an uncle to step up and say, I will help. If he doesn't, and the woman is a widow, then this is here. But if the widow is in line to inherit, how does she approach it? And if you think about it, if there's compassion that the daughters had for sustaining her community, that she's doing it so that the community doesn't lose it. Well, that's one of the discussions that can take place. But maybe it's for her children that she has to do it. It's another discussion. And all of these are in the Talmud. So the Talmud presents these opposing discussions. Yes, Michael.
Thank you, Marty. Now, it's not the same thing, but it's brought to mind something that I have been thinking about for a number of months now, since these demonstrations at the universities against the Jewish people and for Hamas and the Palestinians. And this is what I was thinking about. And I apologize, I don't want to change this subject or anything, but I'm thinking about freedom and responsibility. Things, we're a free nation, but I believe that freedom has to come with some responsibility, just not go wild. And also to throw in there common sense, freedom, responsibility, and common sense.
Yeah. Well, you touch on it. What you just said, responsibility and common sense. Let me read you something from Rabbi Plaut. Marianne, you can find it on page 1218. And I'm going to just do a little excerpt. In the second column towards the bottom, Marianne, it says the male has rights the female does not enjoy. But she is to be wife and mother, invested with inherent dignity, to be sure, but by law and social order relegated to a second-class status comparable to that of minors. And that's the way it was written at that time. Okay, so 5,000 years ago, that's the way it was approached. But today, if we think about it and give it some good thought, we would not say that last part because we have come a long way. We do not think of the woman as a minor. There are a few people, but those of us that have had girls know otherwise. Yes, David. David, you're muted.
Sorry, one thing that this does is it brings me back to the point that I was making earlier, where Rabbi Hertz does try to explain that not maybe a woman phrase. The meaning of the blessing is merely, he wrote, Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set upon me the obligations of a man, which is very different from what the prayer actually says. And one wonders why he didn't word it that way in the prayer. I'm sure there is a reason for it, but I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, that is what Rabbi Hertz has said in the
Okay.
Seder, the Siddur that I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Donna.
Okay.
You're on.
Yeah, I want to go back to the widow and the divorced woman.
Yes.
I've been reading that over and over again.
Yes.
But that it can't be an uncle. It has to be, because the whole theme has been husband and father. That's the one.
That's right.
Okay. So the uncle couldn't walk in, but she imposed on herself. Right. So it's not like she felt stuck, or it might have been a better thing. Maybe she wanted to, or they want to stay in something that they're used to. So anyway, that was just something I caught.
It's yes. The only thing is there are also ways that that they can keep the land in the family and with inheritance if the woman is supported by the uncle, she may wind up marrying the uncle, and therefore everything is okay. You can do that. And that has existed before. And this goes back, Michael, I haven't forgotten you. This goes back, okay, to the Dina story. No, the Tamara story. Okay. Because of that where Tamara becomes a widow, and and just a minute. I just blanked on who it was. Help if anyone remembers that story. Just help me. Anyway, the fellow thinks that she's a prostitute and has sex with her. But he gives her certain parts of his garb and things where he would be identified in the future, and later on he has no children, and she then presents him with all of this, and he bears the responsibility then of taking her in. But he says, "You were right, I was wrong," and that's it. And I've summarized it, and people will find that I left out other parts. But the point I want to make is that it's all based on that event going way back in the book of Exodus. It's buried in the Jacob's, excuse me, not Exodus, Genesis. And I apologize, it's Genesis because it's buried in the Jacob story. Okay. Jacob and Joseph story. Yes, Michael.
Thank you. Just a word, I think you've heard me say this before, Marty, and it's concerning common sense.
Yes.
And it goes like this: common sense is not common.
Okay. I love it. Okay. Yes, Marianne,
Yeah,
and
I think we
then we'll
just,
shift gears. Go ahead.
I think we just kind of shift gears here. That one minute we're talking about material things like inheritance of property, which is not the same thing as a vow to God, which is
That's
totally
right.
different. So, it really, I think, depends on the essence of what is going on. Yes, inheriting stuff, you can't leave her homeless. That just stands to reason. On the other hand, what part of the man's vow is taking care of, not I want to say taking care of her, but helping her and just helping her.
Yes.
So I think those are two different issues between property and material things and obligations to God.
Good point. Any other comments? Because then what I wanted to do for the next hour is talk about some other things that I've been reading in preparation for Passover. Okay, and I wanted to share it with everyone because I thought since we have had a lot of discussions about things, I found a few items that I can read to you, and I thought they were very interesting commentaries on Passover. So before I do that, I'm going to ask everyone, what does Passover mean to you? Okay. I'm going to start it that way. Go ahead, Michael. You go first, and then, and if we do it, if we make it, just don't be
Go
like
around.
me and talk
Yeah.
and talk.
Did you want to go around the table?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm in the middle, so I think Marianne is at the head of at the beginning, and I don't
I
know
don't
what
care.
makes to
It
her,
doesn't
but
matter. Well, it depends. It depends, Michael.
yes, I know.
My screen, we would be, and if we were doing it in Hebrew, you would be first, and then Marion would be third on my screen. Okay, it doesn't matter. I don't care. So go ahead, Marianne. That's okay.
Okay, as you all know, I am not as familiar with this as all of you are. However, what I see Passover as is, yes, it was a rescue by God from the Jewish people. But I also see it as God rescues people, not just Jewish people, but all people from sometimes very dangerous, very questionable situations that God is saying in the Passover, just do what I say. It's going to be okay. And I'm going to take care of your enemies. That it has a lot to do with trusting God and that He always has your best interest at heart, even if it doesn't always look like it. That we have to stand, or I have to stand, committed to my vow. Okay, I guess you could call it a
Okay,
vow
very good.
to do the best I can with what I have to work with. Yeah.
Very good. So I'm going to go across. Michael, you're next.
Okay, I'm going to answer the question the way you asked it. What does it mean to me?
Yeah, what does
In
it
other
mean
words,
to you?
each of us. It means to me family, because I remember sitting around that Seder table when I was a young boy with all of my family at my grandfather's home. and there was a lot of us, and memory, family and memory, to remember all of these wonderful people, my parents, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, you know, you name it. And of course, the story of Passover is very, very important, of course. But what comes to mind are the people who've passed away before my very eyes, so to speak, and they're not no longer here. And I dwell on that. You know, it's just something that's in my heart and soul. And by the way, one other point. When I was sitting around the table at the Chabad in Glendale, California, we went around, the rabbi asked the same question you just did. Same question. And everybody had the same answer.
Sure.
Fam-
Okay.
Family and family, everyone around the table, man, it was the same thing.
Very good. Very good. And so there's nothing new under the sun, Michael. It always comes up again and again. Kent, what does Passover mean to you?
Actually, may I go last of our group?
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank
Donna.
you.
Go ahead, Donna.
Okay, I've been studying out of a book for my conversion in the fall time. I'm really excited about that. But the book, what does it mean to me? I don't have a Jewish background. So I love the idea that you can bring it into modern terms. You know, there's that fluctuation. And so because I can relate to that, I can also, in a way, relate to the escape from them leaving Egypt. But this is what I read about Pesach, and it's very, very short. So it is, as we know, the liberation of the Jewish people from Egyptian bondage, and it became a powerful symbol of redemption. And that is one of the of three that's the groundwork for the Jewish is the redemption. But as Marianne was saying too, the Jewish people, but it's also the redemption of the entire world. And the Haggadah reflects the historic experience, but it also recognizes that slavery is not limited to physical bondage, but that spiritual slavery and social degradation are no less potent methods of depriving human beings of liberty. That's a chunk of that I really relate to.
Yes.
Because I can apply that. I can apply that in modern time too. It's something yeah. So that's plus Pesach leads up to the other, just segues into, you know, the counting of the Omer and and the opportunity to look at ourselves and have those in the past year and have the opportunity and know that we'll be forgiven if we recognize it. So the whole thing is beautiful to me. So, okay.
Very good. Very good. So Kent, you're on. David is not with us right now. He took a break.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Donna, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, Mazel Tov on your upcoming conversion.
Yeah.
That's is very powerful. My wife is a Jew by choice. And so I was there for her bet din. I was not on the bet din, but I was waiting outside for her. I was in San Francisco. It's quite something. Family doesn't come to mind first for Pesach and me, and maybe it's because my daughter's not with us, and usually not during Passover because she's a few thousand miles from. So, but what is the core essence of Pesach to me, year in and year out, is that the historic beleaguerment of the Jewish people, that our freedom are always threatened and in jeopardy. And the way to counter that is, one, to have faith in our God, and to confront evil, and to defend oneself. But our adversaries are there, from the ancient Egyptians to those that Moses and the Hebrews met along the way, to Canaan as the promised land, to the Romans, the Greeks, the Babylonians, through the Nazis and Hamas and the Hezbollah and Iranians, and it's there. And it's, the campus stuff is just tip of the iceberg in this country and other countries. And I see it as a reminder that we must be steadfast in our beliefs and our resilience and our willingness to do what one must to survive as a people, and to survive as our individual communities. So that's what it means to me. And the reason I asked to go last, because I had written a little sign in case, because I'm going to put it up, see if you can read it.
Hey, that's good.
Okay, so everybody knows. So thank you all. Chag Sameach, and free the hostages, all of them now, and give no quarter to our enemies. All right, thanks everybody.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Happy
take
Passover.
care. Bye-bye. Marianne, okay. I found actually three, but first two that relate to what all of you have been discussing. If I can summarize it, I would say there is a personal reason, there is a family reason, and community reason. And you can expand that further out. But when I said the individual, there's all the preparation that goes into it. But there's a theme in Torah, and a theme that it asks us to think about as we go through all of the preparations and doing the service. And I have two different rabbis from different backgrounds, and I know one is conservative, and I know one I don't know, excuse me, one is Orthodox, and one I don't know if it's conservative or reform. But they come from different sources. First, I'm going to read one that he calls spiritual cleansing for Passover. Okay. And I'm going to read it. It's relatively short. And this is Rabbi Ari Enkin. Okay. And I recently discussed how we must prepare our homes for Passover. I want you to remember that. Homes. Okay. I shared tips on what needs to be cleaned for Passover, and how the koshering process is important. We also learned that chametz, the number one enemy of Passover, refers to grain products that have been left to rise. Bottom line, in the days leading up to Passover, we must totally eradicate any chametz in our midst. All of this is the physical chametz. There is another type of chametz as well. That is the chametz of arrogance, the chametz of sin. We are taught that we can allow the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, to predominate, and it is compared to chametz. The Yetzer Hara is its own type of leavening agent. Just as yeast causes dough to rise, the Yetzer Hara inflates our egos, gives us a sense of superiority and invincibility with God, and tempts us to engage in self-serving and unbecoming behavior. Not only do we have to clean physically before Passover, but we have to clean spiritually as well. And that we touched on. Wait a minute, I lost my place. Just a second. Yes, we must eradicate chametz from our homes. Okay, again, homes, but eradicate chametz from our hearts. Just as we ignite a fire to burn the chametz or light a blowtorch for the purpose of koshering our eating utensils, we must also ignite a fire in the soul and then consider and burn it into us. To recommit ourselves to following Torah values. When we burn away the physical chametz, we must also burn away the spiritual chametz. As we clean our homes, searching for places where chametz may be found, we must search our hearts and our deeds. We must take stock and engage in reflection, determining where we need to improve. Sounds familiar to what all of you have been mentioning. As for some, it may be an obsession with materialism. For others, it could be a character defect, anger, jealousy, or the need to control. There are plenty of areas where we can all use some improvement. Once we know where our personal chametz lies, we must clean house. It means making resolutions, making changes, committing to being better, and to become more kosher in terms of Torah. One who is able to look in the mirror and make these changes is truly a free person. Okay, so this led me the relationship of what this is all about, and the mention of the person and this and doing all of these things, making the home ready for the Passover condition, making it, if you will, kosher for Passover. Okay, reminded me of 3 chapters, long chapters in Exodus. Excuse me, in Exodus, that deal with chametz, and it becomes very important. Just put your hand down. I know, Michael, you want to say something, but this is very important. We talk, and I'm glad Rabbi has come on to enter this discussion, because to me it becomes not only personal but very spiritual. We read about Tza'aret, and to get rid of it in your homes, on your clothing, your skin. And way back then, we said also, what about our mind? How do we get rid of it in our mind? And we had that same discussion when we spoke about all of these things. And now we use chametz to get rid of the unleavened bread, and this rabbi is talking about getting it, ridding it from our minds and our souls. So I'm glad that that the rabbi is with us at this point, putting him on the spot. Is there a relationship between getting rid of chametz and tza'aret?
And tzara'at, what they
Tza'arat,
used to
yes.
translate as,
Yes,
leprosy
yes,
or some
yes,
kind of infection.
yes.
There might be a symbolic connection, but I'm not aware offhand of a direct either linguistic
Yeah, I haven't
or
found any
or
discussion.
literary,
Okay.
or in the halakha, um, and I would challenge the thought that it might be, if for no other reason that with Sara'at, it's the high priest who has to designate that, yes, this is or this is not.
Right.
Okay.
Yes,
With Chametz, it's an individual.
that's correct.
You're supposed to clean out your own house and remove anything that is not appropriate for the celebration of the Passover.
Okay.
So that to me sends out the message of whether the responsibility or the accountability is on somebody else or on yourself.
Okay. See, I would say that if you are not taking care of the chametz, the
You
well,
get the chokha, it's get
that's right, the
the chokha going,
chametz.
right?
If you don't get rid of the chametz, uh, does in your mind, it may lead you astray to have the tzarat in your house, tzarat in your house.
Okay, maybe.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Well,
It- you know it,
lots
and
of things
and
are a
on your
stretch.
skin, on your so it
Right.
because contamination, if you will, it deals with the spirit of the house, the spirit of the clothing, the spirit of things, and that's why I raised the question. Yeah. Now, Marianne had her hand up. Michael had his hand up. I think
Michael is
first.
first.
I think first. Yes.
Thank you, Marianne. If he gets, it's okay. What you were saying at the beginning, Marty, reminded me very much of Yom Kippur.
Yes.
Yes. Very much.
Yes. It does. It does, but that's only one day. This is another time that maybe we have to do the same thinking. I mean, according to Rabbi, let's see, Ari Enkin. Yes, go ahead, Marianne.
I would just like to first say to Donna, I just chatted you a message. It should be in your chat thing on this. And to go back to this now, part of this, I think, also involves restitution. I can, if Joe steals $10,000 from Pete, he can be as sorry as he wants to be until he makes restitution to Pete for that money. He's really not owning his greed, his selfishness, coveting, whatever his motivation was, and each person has their own. That is more than just being sorry in your head, being sorry in your heart, and then putting that into action to make it right with that. God can forgive me, which is very nice, and he has a lot. But what about the people I have harmed? To try to ease the harm that I have done to them in some way. I think it's equally as important as just saying, I was a real jerk and, stole $10,000 from you or something. So I think it goes a lot further than just saying I'm sorry.
Sure. It's very true. They all deal with changing your ways. It's not just saying you're sorry. Yes, yes, please.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the unleavened part of it started because they had to get out, they didn't have time to raise
Mhm.
the bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, how does that connect with the cleaning out of the any flour or bread? What's it called again? I'm sorry.
Chametz. In Hebrew, it's chametz. In Yiddish, it's chumetz.
It sounds like hummus. Yeah.
Not
Okay.
Okay.
But not really.
Not
That's
hummus.
Arabic, right? Yeah.
But I can remember that. So
Right.
yeah. So that I find interesting. It's sort of like they didn't have time, but we have time to, to clean the house, and make sure there's nothing in there. And I don't know if there's that connection or not. I just, historically, that's what I've learned is they didn't have time to make sourdough. Okay. So anyway, that's it.
Okay. Any other comments so far? Well, then there's another piece I found about matzah. Glad you brought it up. Okay, and maybe this will it be a response to your question. I don't know if it'll be an answer, but at least it's a response. Okay, and this is by Rabbi Yosef Lin, and he's in England. Freedom stands at the heart of Passover, with matzah as its most profound symbol. The Torah itself calls the holiday Chag HaMatzot. But Pesach, and this is something that the rabbi may want to address, that there are two ways of looking at it. Pesach relates to the Paschal Lamb. So I'll let you, there are two factors here. But he wants to concern himself with the matzah. But what deeper lessons does this simple unleavened bread teach us about true freedom? The paradox of matzah. The Torah presents us with a fascinating contradiction. It calls matzah lechem oni, bread of affliction, yet simultaneously holds it up as our symbol of freedom. And this apparent paradox contains the essence of the Passover's passages and Passover message. Think about hummus or chametz, leavened bread. It rises, expands, and fills space, much like our ego and unchecked desires. Okay, the other rabbi was saying something similar. Chametz represents the tendency of our yetzer hara, our baser, animalistic desires, to inflate our wants beyond our needs, creating endless cravings that ultimately enslave us. Matzah, by contrast, consists only of flour and water without time to rise. Its humble flatness teaches us that Genuine freedom comes not from indulging every desire, but from mastering those desires through purposeful limitation. Your personal Egypt. We've discussed some of these. When our ancestors were liberated from Egypt, Mitzrayim, they were freed not just from physical bondage, but from spiritual confinement. The name Mitzrayim itself comes from the Hebrew words mitzvah and tsar, suggesting narrowness and constriction. In our personal lives, this narrowness manifests as the Yetzer Hara. Like Pharaoh, our Yetzer Hara enslaves us through the illusion of pleasure while binding us in chains we often fail to recognize. How many times have we believed we're acting freely when following our impulses, only to find ourselves unsatisfied and craving more? Just as the Jews couldn't take leavened bread when they hurried out of Egypt, we too must leave behind our hornets, our inflated egos and unconstrained desires to achieve true freedom. In Ethics of the Fathers, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi offers a profound insight. In quotations, and the tablets were the work of, this is from Exodus, and the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was God's writing, engraved on the tablets. In true form, he says, do not read engraved harut, but freedom, cherut. For there is no free person except one who engages in Torah study. This teaching reveals a counterintuitive truth that Matzah exemplifies. Authentic freedom comes not from unlimited choices, but from purposeful limitation. The so-called restrictions of Judaism, like the simplicity of Matzah, they don't constrain us. They liberate us from the tyranny of the Yetzer Hara. Modern psychology has caught up with what the Torah has taught for millennia. Psychologist Barry Schwartz's search in The Paradox of Choice demonstrates that excessive options often lead to decreased satisfaction, heightened expectations, and increased regret. All forms of psychological bondage. Like matzah, with its minimal ingredients, a life with meaningful boundaries leads to greater contentment than one overwhelmed by endless options. The Yetzer Hara thrives in environments of limited choice, where it can constantly whisper, maybe something else would be better. So breaking free from modern slavery. Our consumer culture bombards us with messages that freedom means satisfying every desire. Want it, buy it, feel it, express it, crave it, indulge it. The results are clear. Rising rates of addiction, overspending, and dissatisfaction. Modern forms of slavery that our Yetzer Hara convinces us represent freedom. Just as matzah reminds us of our ancestors breaking free from Egyptian bondage, it calls us to examine our own slaveries to technology, material possessions, public approval, and fleeting pleasures. Next is a different kind of freedom. What distinguishes the limitations symbolized by matzah from arbitrary restrictions? The difference lies in their purpose and direction. When we choose restrictions, we align with Torah values. They don't constrain us, they liberate us to fulfill our divine potential. This Passover, as we break the matzah at our Seder tables, let us recognize it as a symbol of breaking free from our Yetzer Hara. The humble simplicity of matzah, its careful and mindful preparation, and the decisiveness required to make it before leavening occurs, all teach us how to achieve genuine freedom from the inner Pharaoh that seeks to enslave us. True freedom isn't the ability to do whatever we feel like. It's liberation from the tyranny of always wanting more, which is a different take on it's slightly more than what we were discussing. So I wanted to share that with everyone. I thought that it was a good way of looking at things. Donna addressed it, Marianne addressed it, Michael addressed it in a different way. David was out of the room for a second, so he didn't have an option. What does Passover mean to you?
I was
The
not,
question.
I was listening to, I was deliberately concentrating on the audio of what you were saying at the beginning of our discussion. And I thought it was wonderful, well put, and really worth concentrating on. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. So you were there. You were there. Okay. And so what does Passover mean to you, David? You're muted. You muted
I think
yourself.
what you said and what the rabbis you quoted have said is very much how I see Passover.
Okay.
It is a celebration of freedom. However, freedom does mean responsibility, and it's not cheap. It's expensive and sometimes rather difficult. But it is so important and worthy of our lives right now, I think.
Thank
And
you.
this is the celebration of Passover for me.
Yes. Yes, Michael. Go ahead. And then I'm going to ask the rabbi because he joined us too. Michael, you're muted. That happens.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Marty, very, very much. I wanted to talk a moment about the two words celebration and observing. There's, in the Jewish religion, the way I see it, I think it's all, although you can make an argument that it's about observed and celebrated. However, I believe personally that the Jewish religion is all about observing. And the way I come about that is that there are, but you can't do that, and you got to do it this way, and you have to do it that way. There's so many components put in that you can't do that. I'll take the Shabbat, for example. The Shabbat, everybody say you celebrate the Shabbat. You can sing, you can dance, but you can't play any musical instruments. So there's so many things that all Hanukkah is a big celebration, but you gotta light the candles from left to right, and you can't do this and you can't do that. There's so many things thrown in. So I personally see it as an observance, or it's all observing. Yeah, sure, there's some celebrating, but if I put it on a scale, if I weigh this stuff, pardon the expression when I say stuff, but that's how I just see it that way. And
Okay.
be it as it may, that's what I.
Thank you. Rabbi, you're on. And then I
Marianne
want to
wanted
get
to-
on to the next thing I brought.
Marianne wanted to jump in.
Oh,
Go
what-
ahead, Rob.
Oh,
I think this is a very difficult thing for people to do, to humble themselves, to smash the pride and ego, to admit the exact nature of their wrong, not what they did, because we all do things, but what motivated them. And I think that a lot of, at least in my experience for myself and with other people, that it's very difficult when you're feeling that insecure, that injured in your heart, in your mind, to be that honest about something. It's a very humbling experience, but it's not an easy thing to do, to have people admit that to themselves and to God.
Very good. Rabbi, you're on spot now. What does
Okay.
Passover mean to you? As a
Well,
as not necessarily as a rabbi, but as you.
Yeah, I'll try to give an hour and a half lecture back in about 3 minutes. The Oh, and I did want to say, Marty, because you kind of raised the question and then passed over it. But there are two separate holidays.
That's
Okay,
right.
Chag HaMatzot and Chag HaPesach are two separate holidays in the
That's
Torah.
right. In Torah,
Okay?
that's right.
Right. They wind up being conflated and observed in a joint way. But originally there were two separate ones. One was more historical and the other was more spiritual, or agricultural, if you will. What does Passover mean to me? Passover is important to me, and certainly on a very, very high level, primarily because it's the opportunity to see myself and those whom I can teach or influence or share with. What to me is probably the most important phrase in the Haggadah. And that's, I'll do the Hebrew first, is B'chol dor vador chayav adam li'rod et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, each of us is supposed to regard ourselves as if we individually came out of Egypt. That, in other words, in every generation, every individual is supposed to feel and be empathic with the pain of slavery, the awe and wonder of witnessing the miracles, and then freedom, feeling freedom, and personal responsibility. So if sometimes I explain it like that we're each Passover is the time that we're at the focal point of two axes, a horizontal and a vertical axis. And if the horizontal is the historical, that it's the moment when we identify with our past and ideally learning all the lessons, whether they're the lessons as described in the Torah or the lessons as described in the Haggadah, which of course is a later literature, or the lessons that this group and every Torah study group, has been describing, on knowing yourself and knowing your place in the in the line of the Jewish people, and also with the vertical axis, if you will, of looking up to God. Okay, that it's a reminder. It's a reminder of how we connect to God. It's a reminder of how God has related to our people, how God has helped and redeemed our people, and it's the question of what need we be doing to try to bring more of that redemption into the present world. So, in that sense, I guess it's the most important of the holidays because it reminds me, teaches me, and challenges me about my my position or my role vis-a-vis Jewish history and also my relationship with God.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to show you something. What the rabbi said, did you remember he said the two axes coming together, okay. This is Native American. Oops. And I can't, you'll get a quick glimpse of it.
Yeah, we got it. Right.
There are four arrows that are pointing to the center representing man, the flowering of man. Okay? Mankind. I'm going to read this to you. It's called the four medicine arrows. And it's on a shield. Okay.
Somebody obviously knew the Haggadah because of all the four questions, the four children, the four this, the four that. Okay.
This is Native American Sioux Nation. The shield shown on the page depicts the sign of the four medicine arrows. These arrows contain teachings about man. Every story and every situation should be regarded from the four different directions and judged accordingly. From the direction of wisdom, the north arrow. From the direction of innocence, the south arrow. From the direction of farsight, the east arrow. And from the direction of introspection, the west arrow. That's not written. The medicine wheel, thus, shows people a way to learn more about themselves, their brothers, the world, and the universe. Because of the different ways of looking at things, the meaning of a story or an event unfolds little by little, like the flower at the center of the symbol. Remember, that flower is man. Formed by the four arrows, the flower also indicates that all events and stories are, after all, one, because all four arrows of enlightenment join up in the center. When I read this, I immediately thought of our Passover service and what all the different rabbis are talking about. And we call them by different names, the different children that are asking the questions. But here, this is another way of expressing something similar. So basically, respect each one for who they are. Yes, Rabbi, did you want to comment on this?
No,
No?
I'm
It supports
fine.
what you were saying.
I appreciate that. Right.
Yeah. And so I just found that and that is in well, you have to read backwards.
No, we see it directly.
It's fine, Marty.
You see it directly. Okay, fine. That's the title of the book. And so at this point, any other comments about what we've been reading about the birth? You can even the passages about the women. Yes, we can think of them as being constrained by all of these vows, and or we can think of it also as freedom, which is also dovetailing into the stories of the matzah, the stories of the Passover service and everything. And I'll end it at that. Rabbi, did you want to make any other announcements?
Let me see. I certainly want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach. You know, we used to say a Zissen Pesach, a sweet Passover observance and celebration, respecting Michael's wording there. Okay.
Yes.
Their next, no, so next Saturday morning, which will be Seventh Day Pesach, is when we'll have our Shabbat and Seventh Day Pesach and Yizkor service next Saturday morning. So there won't be Torah study. This Tuesday, the Joshua study continues for the next three Tuesdays. The details will be coming out on sometime during next week, but on the 24th, which is Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Memorial Day,
Mhm.
we're doing a Zoom program
Yes.
about the Holocaust memorial scrolls that were saved from the salt mines in Czechoslovakia and Bohemia and Moravia. We have one of the curators who's going to be spending an hour with us on Zoom talking about that program. And then the following week, we're participating with the JCC up in Tucson, both for Yom HaZikaron, which is Israel's Memorial Day, as well as Yom HaAtzmaut, which I think is May 4th, the first Sunday in May, later in the afternoon, and that Sunday is the Israel Independence Day celebration.
Very, very good. That's it. And we're going to have a busy schedule, for Passover with all the services and everything. So it should be very good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
And
hope
yes,
so.
I want to be with family and friends.
Right. For those who haven't, I'll be talking about it both at our home tonight and a little bit tomorrow night too. There's certainly mixed emotions for all of us, especially those of us connected to Israel. We talk about redemption and freedom, and yet there are still 59 hostages that are unaccounted for. The notion that's going around, if you hadn't heard it, is to include a lemon to go along with the Seder plate tonight and tomorrow as a different kind of bitterness for the Israeli families that are waiting for their sons, daughters, parents, grandparents, whatever, who are hostages. That's one suggestion that I would pass along, as well as again a reminder, if you haven't yet voted in the WZO Congress elections, please do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Busy time coming up.
Yes.
Oh
So
yeah, and David and I have our bar mitzvah anniversaries coming up.
Yes, that's coming up the 29th of April or the 28th for you,
Right.
29th for me.
Yep.
Bar mitzvahs, which is something I really cherish.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm going to close with another Indian prayer. It's Lakota Sioux. I did some work with the tribe many years ago, and looking after Native Americans for a while. They honored me by giving me a stethoscope that had a cover. They embroidered an entire cover for the stethoscope out of with beads. It was very, very nice. But anyway, this is a prayer. Great mystery. Teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, and the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I may enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear, and thus walk in balance with the passing of each glorious son. Amen.
Amen.
That summarizes what we've been talking about.
Hmm.
Okay. So so I just wanted to share that with you because it strikes home for some people.
Beautifully put, Marty. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other announcements before we sign off?
There probably are, but I don't,
I'm going to be there.
right, okay.
Yes, Marianne.
I have a question, not an announcement.
Sure.
The Joshua study, is that going to be the same length as this Zoom meeting?
It's
Because
1
I
hour.
lost all that email. I don't know whatever happened to it.
I sent you another one with the link, either was it yesterday or early this morning, Marianne?
Thank you. I'll look again. I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
we go about an hour and 15 minutes, something like that.
Right, because from the other ones, I was participating, and then about 2, 3 weeks ago, the Zoom thing just whacked out everything on me. I will look again, whether I got it or not. Thank
Okay.
you, Rabbi.
Yep.
Okay. With that, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom,
Chag
Chag
Sameach.
Sameach, Good Yontif.
Yes. And have a very, very healthy week. And
Mm.
hopefully I'll see a temple. Okay.
Amen.
Take care.
Sameach,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.